Before we get going, real quick, I just want to let everyone know that the shirt is still up on guesstheyear.net, and I'll link to it in the show notes, and you can check it out. The pre-order closes on Thursday, so yeah, I really, really appreciate you taking a look. All right, really fun show today. Enjoy. Welcome to Guess the Year. I'm the host. My name's Mike. This week we have 5 deadheads competing for a prize pack provided by TCO Fly Shop and a spot in next week's show. TCO Fly Shop, which stands for Tulpehocken Creek Outfitters, was named for one of the finest tailwater fisheries in the East, the Tulpehocken Creek. They have 4 locations around Pennsylvania and a significant e-commerce business. Yeah, I've gotten to know Tony, the founder. Great guy. He runs his business like you'd hope a deadhead would. He is a huge deadhead, and you'll see as much if you go to TCO Fly Shop's site. Just tons of dead-themed equipment and apparel. So I'll link TCO in the show notes. Thank you so much, Tony, for putting up the prize pack. We really appreciate it. Okay, here's how the game works. We'll play the first part of a Grateful Dead live track, and each contestant will use the messaging system to silently guess which year the performance is from. Contestants, who are all in a video conference together, can message in their guesses at any time during the clip or in the 10 seconds after it concludes. Whoever is furthest from the correct year is eliminated. The last 2 deadheads standing will have a best of 3 series to determine a winner. We've got our returning champion Garrin here with us, our back-to-back champion Garrin here with us, and we'll meet the rest of the deadheads in a moment, but first, without further ado, the Grateful Dead.
So it goes. We make what we made since the world began. Nothing more. The love of the women, work of men. Seasons round, creatures great and small, up and down, to rise and fall.
All right, the guesses are in. It was Let It Grow at the Spectrum on August 29th, 1980. So we only had one person get it exactly. It was Nick. He's 42 from Kansas City. Nick, how did you pull 1980 out of that crazy jam?
I heard Brent and his keys. They're kind of tingy. He's still young. He's still fresh. He's kind of finding his way in the band. But what really gave it away was Phil. I just pictured him at Radio City plucking his 4-string bass. He didn't have the 5-string bass yet. So I went with 80.
Really nice pull. Thanks. You are on to the next round. Next closest was Steve. He guessed 1979. Steve is 51 from Lincoln, Nebraska. So you thought it was first year of Brent?
Well, what I was keying in on, I'm with everything Nick said, but I was listening to Garcia, and I thought it sounded pretty wolfy, and he didn't start playing Tiger until like December of 79, I think. So I thought, well, maybe it's Brent's first shows, but it was just, Jerry just had the treble turned down, but that's what I was keying in. It was either 79 or 80. So
because of Jerry's tone.
Yeah. And as soon as Nick said 80, I'm like, well, yeah. but it was just Garcia's tone. I was listening because the Tiger's like, it's sharper to me than Wolf. And so the tones coming out of Garcia on this one sounded like rounder and a little more muted. And so that's, or not muted, but just I don't have the technical term, but not as razor like as sometimes could come out of Tigers. That's why I thought maybe it was still Wolf.
Thank you, Steve. You're on to the next round. Garrin is the 2-time returning champ. He's 50 from Brooklyn. Garrin, what did you hear in Jerry's guitar, and why'd you guess 82?
No, I agreed with what everybody just said, analysis wise. Yeah, that was just, I think Jerry rolling off most of the treble on the guitar and, running it through an overdrive and just getting that really thick mid-range sound. But yeah, that made it a little hard to identify. It was also an interesting selection because the vocals, you just got one little glimpse of the vocals there. And then it was on to that long jam, And I was like, I wish I could hear a little bit more Brent's vocal because that's sometimes a tip off for me. But yeah, I agree with what everybody said. And I knew it in my mind, I was like 80 to 82. And I just went a little farther into the 80s because I don't know what it was exactly. It just sounded a little had that like ragged edge to it. And they got a little bit more ragged as the 80s went on. So
cool, Garrin. You're on to the next round. So Adam also guessed 82, so he's also on the next round, which makes Clay odd man out. Sorry, Clay. Clay guessed 84.
Before I logged on, I told my wife nightmare scenario is early 80s first round and I exit.
Yep.
Brutal.
Sorry, Clay.
Exactly.
Oh, those dreaded 80s, man. They get you every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and only 4 years off too. That's a tough way to go out. Sorry, Clay. We'll hear about it in a sec. But Adam, 82 as well. Adam is 51 from Ridgewood, New Jersey. Why 82, Adam?
So Clay, if it makes you feel any better, I am exactly the same way. And here's my philosophy on early 80s. From 1980 to 85, I struggle. It's just an era that I really don't enjoy as much. So I was unsure. So I decided to split the difference using math and picked 82. And I'm not kidding. I mean, it really came down to me but my initial instinct, that I had typed was 81 or 80. I was leaning towards 80 or 81, but I was like, I'm not sure. So I'm going to split the difference and hopefully using math, I'll land close. That was how I did it. And I came up with 82.
Playing the game, Adam. You're on to the next round. Clay, I'm sorry this resulted in your nightmare scenario. You are 33 from Statesville, North Carolina. Why 84?
That kind of frenetic pace was one thing that kind of led me to 84. The tape quality, I think, was particularly great, which I feel like you get a lot in the kind of middle 80s years. So that's why I ended up there. But, man, tough result.
Clay, how did you get into the Dead?
When I was in middle school, I went to a summer camp where a lot of the older kids and counselors and stuff were into the kind of jam scene. And I just thought they were cool, man. And so I went home, and kind of a common refrain on the show is my parents had Skeletons from the Closet. Put that on, and from Golden Road, I was hooked, kind of stayed in the kind of top level for a while of Europe 72 and American Beauty and Working Man's. And then about probably 10 years ago, started kind of falling down the archive rabbit hole. And I've been kind of falling ever since, I'm getting to go see it was, a couple of years before Dead & Company kind of got together. And so that happening was big for me also. Finally, getting a chance to see Bob and Mickey and Billy has been great. And I don't know. It's kind of been going down the archives ever since. Probably the sweet spot, actually, 74 and 76 are probably what I listen to the most.
Oh, 76. Why 76? Over like 77 or 78?
I mean, I obviously, listen to a ton of 77 as well, but that just kind of fun, jazzy, groovy, middle of the 70s stuff really appeals to me.
Cool.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Clay. Great to meet you, and I'm glad you came on. Thank you so much. Okay, Steve, Nick, Adam, and Garrin are on to the next round, competing for the TCO Fly Shop prize pack. Let's hear the next song. Okay. The guesses are in. It was It's All Over Now, Baby Blue at Winterland on February 24th, 1974. So Garrin, Steve, and Nick all got it. Adam guessed 1972. Sorry, Adam. But Nick, you sent yours in about 4 to 5 seconds. How did you know that was 74?
74 is just one of those years where it has this distinct sound. It doesn't sound like 72. It doesn't sound like 76. It's really, it's one of my more favorite years to listen to. I love the concept of the wall of sound. I just know 74, or at least I think I know 74 very well. And as soon as I heard it, and I also think Baby Blue, it may have been the first, 74 was the first year that they started covering that. I don't know. But it just had that wall of sound groove where everyone was together, but in separate sounds and channels. And I just love the way 74 sounds.
Thanks, Nick. You're on to the next round. Nice work. Joining you is Steve. Steve, nice pull in the 74. Did you hear the wall of sound as well?
Yeah, and I also was the benefit of that being one of the first shows I ever had on CD. So I listened to it about 1 million times. And so as soon as it started playing, I'm like, oh, that's 224/74.
Nice. Wow. Nice.
which has also one of my favorite morning dews in it. So that was kind of a gimme for me. It was like seeing an old friend again, like, oh, hey, it's yeah.
And what was the CD? Was it like an official release?
No, this was a shitty. It wasn't shitty. It was great sounding, but it was like one that I bought in a record store. This was before, like, right as CD burners were coming into being a thing. They were expensive, and like I had all these tapes, but I paid $25 for a CD of part of that show, basically.
And this is like a behind the counter bootleg situation.
Kinda, yeah. Yeah, it was totally not legit. And I felt, felt kind of shitty spending $75 on 3 Grateful Dead CDs, right? That I knew weren't legit, but I also wanted the CDs. So
cool, Steve. You're on to the next round. Garrin, another nice pull. You guessed 1974 correctly. Did you hear the wall sound as well?
I did. I didn't know that particular performance, so I had to sort of just do my normal investigative kind of listening, And I definitely heard that the very distinct wall of sound, microphone sound in there, which is always sort of. So then you're 73 or 74. I mean, the first thing I heard was there's only one drummer, obviously. So that's something to think about, and obviously Keith, and So then once you figure out it's a wall of sound, then you're down to a couple options, and I didn't associate Baby Blue with that period at all. It's funny. I didn't even know they played that back then. So that was sort of threw me off a little bit. So I knew it had to have been either a debut or very early on, or because that song debuted in like 66 or something. And then I think of it as being like a, consistent encore in the late 80s, but I didn't think of it as a 70s tune. So that was interesting.
I'm guessing you caught It's All Over Now, Baby Blue encore in your touring years.
I did. And, several.
Was it one that you enjoyed? You're like, oh, hell yeah, It's All Over Now, Baby Blue.
Yes. Yeah. I liked Jerry's mellow encores. I know that some people preferred to leave the show on a rockin' note, but I sort of thought that was such a cool, unique thing they had in their sort of, if you want to think of their sets as being somewhat programmed, especially towards the end, that was something that I just thought was very unique to them. Let's end the show on a ballad. Thought that was cool.
Nice work, Garrin. You're on the next round. Adam, 72. What were you thinking there?
I knew they had played it a couple of times in 70, 71, and 72. And I knew about the one in 74 that this was, but I just didn't think it was this one because it was so slow. And also Jerry came in on the lyric a little bit. It just felt raw to me, like an earlier version. And, but I knew they had played it in 72 for sure. It was literally like 2 times or something like that. And only once in 74. And then it came back a long time. It took a while.
Well, Adam, how'd you get into the Dead?
my foray into the Dead started at the greatest Dead show of all time in modern Dead history, and that was 3/29/90, the Brantford show at Nassau Coliseum. That was my first show. My best friends, Larry DeTore and Jason Lederman, took me to that show, and they both have passed away, sadly, way before their time. So I continued to just evolve for years. I saw 81 shows from that day on and all the way to the end, and just been obsessed with the Dead ever since.
Were many of those shows with your pals?
Yeah, we went on tour every summer from 90 to 95 in between college. So I was in college in my freshman year in 90, and we slowed down in 95. I think I got a job right in that final tour, but though we went every summer on the road, and it was just the best of times. I mean, saw the whole country, all the way, did a lot of shows out west, and as far down as Miami, did Atlanta. 93 and 94 were big touring years for me. So I know a lot of the 90s Deads, probably, you know, even though that's where I saw the Dead, and I know it's not my favorite to go to. I know I was not seeing good stuff at the time because I was listening to a lot of 70s when I was seeing them in the 90s. So, and that's where the memories are for me.
I'm always fascinated by that because it's such a, it's seeing the Grateful Dead, but you knew even still, like, this is great, this is fun, but it's not like it used to be.
I mean, my friends would sometimes tell me I'm being a little bit of a lame ass by complaining about a show afterwards. Like, didn't you just have a good time? And I'd be like, oh man, like when they busted out Here Comes Sunshine in 92, I remember, and Casey Jones, I was at the bust out in RFK in 92. And I just remember thinking that these are slow and there's no jam in the Here Comes Sunshine. And, the jam in between China and Ryder in 73 and 74, I was always wishing they would do that again, So I just always felt a little let down in the 90s. However, I will say some of the best things about the 90s for me are ballads, like Stella Blue in 94, great year. I love So Many Roads. I think Days Between is a great song. I even like Liberty when I hear it now. I hated it at the time, but now when I hear it, I can't help myself to sing along to it. I love Liberty. And, Lazy River Road is a beautiful Jerry ballad that most people hate. But I think it's a great song. So I do respect the 90s, but I'm definitely hardcore in 76, 77, and 78, and 73 and 74. That's where I spend my time.
That Nassau show, did you have a feeling like this is kind of epic? People are going to be talking about this for a while.
My friend told me, he said, my advice to you is never go see another Dead show. You're going to be chasing this one for your life. That's what he said. And it was an amazing show. I don't think it's overrated at all. I mean, I think that Eyes of the World is so spectacular. I bought the vinyl version of that. They released the whole show. And I have it upstairs. It's still in the wrapper. And I told my wife to bury me with it. Like, it's just that show is so special. not bury me with it, you know what I mean? But it's just like, or bury me with it. I don't know, whatever, it's like, if I die early, I guess I'll, it's a great show. And I play it every year on 329. And I go and visit my two buddies who passed away, and I play it there. I play it for them. I open up the trunk and I blast it for them.
Wow, that is incredible. The whole show?
No, just okay. The Eyes. Well, Jason loved the Dark Star, so I play him the Dark Star.
That's amazing, Adam.
Thank you for having me, Mike. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, appreciate you being here, Adam. Appreciate everything you shared. So Steve, Nick, and Garrin are on to the next round, competing for 2 spots in the best of 3 series to get the TCO Fly Shop prize pack. This is a very good group. Yeah, these 3s have earned their spots. So let's play the next song. right. It was going down the road feeling bad at the Omni in Atlanta on April 3rd, 1990. Steve was the only one who fist bumps. He's the only one who got it exactly. Steve, how'd you suss 1990?
Rosebud. It was the guitar. It was Garcia's guitar. And a little bit of the way the drums sound. There was just one little drum fill prior from Mickey. I'm like, all right, that's 90. But it was back to Garcia's tone. Rosebud was a more refined sounding instrument to me than Tiger, which means I like it less, even though it had the MIDI stuff. But Tiger had this fucking like just tear your head off element to it that Rosebud really didn't have unless it was going through the right distortion pedal. But Tiger by itself was just vicious, could be. And Rosebud didn't really have that. It was a much more mature sounding instrument, and that's what was coming through to that for me. So yeah, that one was kind of tricky, but it was Rosebud that clinched it for me. That was a good one.
Yes, that was a good one, and it was Liz who sent that in. Thank you, Liz, who was in the final a couple weeks ago. Thanks a lot, Liz. Nick guessed 89 and Garrin guessed 87. So our champ goes down. Nick, nice pull on 89. What were you thinking there?
You know, it was sounding a lot like, I don't know, 89 was just a magical year for the Dead. And I was thinking it reminded me a little bit of Alpine 89, but then I kind of heard some flubs here and there. So I was like, is it 88? I didn't really think it was any 86 or 87, but I heard a little bit of flubs. And Steve, I like your observation, because Rosebud is a much more mature, polished sound that Jerry had. And, you know, he was still playing the Tiger or busted out the Wolf in 89. My first type in was 89. I was like, no, it's 88. It sounds a little sloppy, but then it just kind of came together. I was like, might be 89. So I kind of played the middle and took the safe road.
All good stuff, Nick. You're on to the final. Nice work. Garrin, incredible run. Why'd you guess 87?
Well, this is a very nuanced analysis, by the way. It's pretty high level stuff here. Yeah, that's a really good observation about Jerry's guitar. I was more focused on, well, first of all, the tones were all very organic to me. And so 90 is just when it gets into, you know, MIDI land, hardcore. And so when I don't hear any MIDI or any really overly processed tones, I go, okay, I'm moving out of the 90s. Then I just go down. I knew it was somewhere 87 in my mind, to 89. And the tempo was just so fast. I was thinking fall 87. It reminded me of that sort of after that summer tour when they were just riding high and just playing however they wanted to, essentially. They just had this freedom to it. And Brent's tone was so organic, and so all that stuff.
Garrin, you had a great run. Listening to you these past few weeks has been incredible. We'll see you at the Tournament of Champions. In the meantime, does Gratefully Yours have any dates you want to plug or any info or anything like that?
Well, we're always playing. We're based in New York State, so we play sort of the capital region, everywhere from New York City, Connecticut, upstate, mid-state New York. Oh, we're doing because Dead and Company is doing the Cornell thing, and so we're doing pre and post shows up in Ithaca that night, and actually maybe during the Cornell gig too, because there's going to be so many people that aren't getting in, you know. So we're going to be at a place called the Upstairs in Ithaca that's 5/8/23, not 5/8/77.
Awesome, Garrin. Do you think that's the best Dead show ever?
No. You know, the two dates that surround it are such exceptional shows too, you know. But it deserves its place in the lore, I would say.
Awesome, Garrin. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, man. I really had a good time. Thank you.
Steve and Nick are on to the finals, as I've said, and Garrin just said. And this is some high-level deadheadery tonight. So I'm excited to watch you guys go. Let's play the first song. So that was a Slipknot into a Franklin's that we just missed there, sadly. Steve and Nick both guessed 1976. Steve, why'd you guess 76?
It was tough. I was, of course, leaning between that and spring of 77. And the reason what tipped me to 76 was the drums going through Slipknot towards the end as they were starting to slide it, make the transition to Franklin's Tower. It just wasn't as tight as it would have been, I think, in spring of 77, because there was a tonal thing. I was listening for some like more reverb on the drums that in the spring of 77 that didn't exist in 76. And the recording was just, I couldn't quite suss that out. So I kind of flipped a coin and went with 76.
Awesome. And Nick, you agreed 76.
Yeah, I feel 76 is kind of similar to like 74, like I was talking about earlier. It has this sound that's distinct from other years, but what really gave it away for me was Jerry's guitar. I think it's playing the white guitar. It's got the aluminum neck. It's got this little twang to it. They're still kind of feeling their way through the song. So I knew it wasn't 77 because it wasn't as polished. But the twang of Jerry's guitar just really gave it away for 76, which to me just has a standout sound compared to other years. Even 77, it's just a little different. And so I knew fairly right out the gate that it was 76.
Great. You guys are right. It was 76. It was Slipknot at the Capitol Theater on June 19th, 1976. So before we move forward, Nick, could you tell us how you got into the Dead?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Chicago, and I spent some time in Madison, Wisconsin, up at a boarding school called Wayland Academy, my sophomore year of high school, which was right in like 1995. And little did I know that Madison is crawling with Deadheads. And it's one of the cooler places in the Midwest, in my opinion, to go hang out. And the teachers were into the Dead, but there's this kid on my floor. His name was Kevin Coulevar. And Kevin didn't really like the music I was listening to. And he's like, man, nah, he's like, you gotta check this out. And he gave me a bunch of CDs that really changed my life and got me into the music that I'm into today. And a lot of those CDs were it was Studio Dead stuff. He gave me the first Grateful Dead album, Oxomoxoa, American Beauty, Working Man's Dead, Shakedown Street, which I still, Kevin, if you're out there listening, I still have your copy of Shakedown Street that you gave me in 1995, man. And then what really made it click for me was Dead Set. He gave me Dead Set, and I was able to hear everything from the beginning of the Dead to Shakedown Street be translated into live version. And I was like, man, live is so much better than the studio stuff. Who is the Grateful Dead? Why are they following me? And what do I got to do to get into it? And it's really been no looking back for me ever since. I mean, in my opinion, the Grateful Dead is the pinnacle of Americana music. And there's only one Grateful Dead. There's a lot of people that do a lot of similar things in the day-to-day that they would not do if it were not for the Grateful Dead. So they're the kings, man. They're the kings of jam band. Couldn't imagine my life without the Grateful Dead. I listen to them every day. Drives my wife nuts. I give her a break every once in a while and put on Jerry Garcia band, but for the most part, it's just Dead all the time.
What were you listening to when everybody was like, nah, like this sucks?
So I was really into Metallica, and I had all Metallica studio albums, and I remember hearing like Metallica's live album that came out, and I was like, this is garbage, man. How come they're not sounding as good as they do on their studio stuff? So the Grateful Dead really filled in the gap. But, it's like the typical 90s stuff, Offspring, Nine Inch Nails. I mean, good music, but not the Grateful Dead. Not the Grateful Dead at all.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate that. Okay, well, no one gets a point. Same situation as the last song. I'm going to have to do more work here if I'm going to trip these guys up, it seems. Let's play the next song.
Break him in the vault. All his children grew and grew. They never grew so tall before. They may never grow so tall again. We took him up on Tuesday. He hardly aged a day. Taught them all he ever knew. They never knew so much before. They may never know so much again. Mason was a mighty man, mighty man to see. All he said when I'm dead and gone, don't you weep for me.
All right, Mason's Children. Nick, you guessed 68. Why 68?
You know, I got to be honest. Primal Dead from 67 to 69 is something that I don't listen to all that often. I know you like to trip people up sometimes and do 69, but it sounded really, really early. Sounded like they were still trying to find their way with each other. I heard Pigs organ. And I know they only played Mason's Children for a short period of time. I was going back and forth between 67 and 68, but I took the safe road this guess here and chose 68.
Great. Thanks, Nick. Steve was a couple of years north at 1970. Why 1970, Steve?
Because that's the year they played Mason's Children.
Bam, I just got schooled. Thanks, Steve.
Don't ask me why I know that, man. It just, I mean, I could be wrong and I'll have egg all over my face, but I'm pretty sure it was 70. Because it was around the Working Man's Dead, American Beauty recording sessions that they were working on that.
Got it. Yeah, it was Mason's Children at Golden Hall on January 10th, 1970.
Yeah. Good job, Steve.
So thanks. Real close to 69, real close, but I think and I could be, I think it's 4 or 5 times, maybe it was more, but it wasn't a lot. They kind of abandoned it, which is kind of a bummer because it's a great song. I got to see Phil play it a bunch. Then they kind of got the arrangement dialed a little bit, so.
Good knowledge. How did you get into the Dead? It seems like you know a lot about them. Well,
it's really funny, Nick, you said boarding school and sophomore year of high school, because I'm the same deal, man.
All right. Nice.
Yeah. Well, so I had a buddy from Lincoln. In fact, the building behind me on my screensaver is Pershing Auditorium in Lincoln, Nebraska, where the Grateful Dead played on February 26th, 1973. One of my friends was there. I was 2 years old. I wasn't there. But so anyway, my first sophomore year of high school, a guy I was running around with played Working Man's Dead all the time. His parents were hippies, and kind of not coincidentally, the next year I got sent away to military school for my second sophomore year of high school. And it was there, and that was the Missouri Military Academy in Mexico, Missouri. And my company commander there, my second sophomore year of high school, gave me 2 tapes. He was a Deadhead, and he gave me the second set to 621-86 from the Greek Theater, and an 82 Red Rock show that it didn't sound very great. The 621-86, the second set of that, is still one of my favorite second sets. It's just stupidly raw and amazing and ragged, but awesome, right? But anyway, and he gave them to me. He's like, one of these days, you're going to appreciate these, right? And I grew up on every, Bon Scott era AC/DC. I loved Angus Young, Black Flag, The Cure a little bit, like even a little Smiths, and like that's kind of what I was into. The Police, loved the Police. But like what really kind of grabbed me about that 62186 tape was because like when I got that tape, Touch of Grey was starting to hit the radio, right? And so there were pictures of Garcia around, kind of, gray and wearing the red flannel and looking a little, Garcia-ish, right? And and on the Not Fade Away on the end of that second set, it's just raw and awesome. And he does the fanning thing. And I loved when Angus Young did that on Let There Be Rock. Like that was one of my favorite things ever. And so I like had this vision of gray, grizzled Garcia doing the Not Fade Away thing. And it just really hit me, like, holy shit, like that's intense and just cool. And it made me laugh, frankly. This old guy's out there just wailing on, so that's kind of, and then the encore that night is Broke Down Palace. And like I said, like I was into Black Flag and I was an angry young man. But the solo in that Broke Down Palace there's a ton of distortion on it. And it's human, like there's a little finger flubbing in it. But that song like calmed me in a way that you guys can probably appreciate. You know what I'm saying? Like it was very human and very just honest. That's the thing that's always come through with me is like with the Dead, you kind of get what you get, right? All of the frailty and all of the dysfunction and they're just this giant musical clusterfuck, right? That has this power that nobody can really bottle or explain or anything, and we all have our different experiences with it. But so finally, like long story, I ended up in Northern Virginia, south of Washington, D.C., where they played a lot. So I saw my first show at RFK in 1990. And that Victim of the Crime and Dark Star kicked my ass is what I'll say that because my mom will probably listen to this. But then the post drums, like I started to hear like space. I mean, I can't even, what I'm saying. It was raining. The field at RFK Stadium was a mud pit. It was insane. Of just epic proportions. And I knew when they were coming out of space, I'm like, because I was terrified. You know what I'm saying? Like I was terrified. But then I started hearing, I'm like, that's all along the Watchtower. There, and I started shaking my friend. It was our first show. So I'm like, they're gonna play all the Watchtower. And he's like, oh my God. And they did, and it was amazing. And then they did like the Dear Mr. Hey Jude, Dear Mr. Fantasy, Hey Jude, finished the set with Touch of Grey and the Wait for the encore. And that was it. I was done. I was a deadhead. Period. You know what I'm saying?
In the movies, the company commander is always a hard ass, but it seems like yours was just a super cool dude.
He had to keep up the hard ass front. You know what I'm saying? But on the backside, there was literally. I'll keep this brief, but we did like a Sunday review where you put on all the dress stuff and do a march up and down the field for people and stuff with the band and the flags and the guys in lines marching. And there was one time when they were doing awards or something. So we're just standing. I was in the marching band. I played sax, and we're just standing there, kind of at the back of the field. And my company commander does this abrupt, like about face, and just starts marching off the field. And everybody's like, "What the fuck is going on? What's he doing? Where's Curtis going?" Right? And the second in command just kind of marched up. I was like, "Well, I guess I'll stand here now." And I found out, he blamed it on dysentery, but I found out the next year that he was losing his mind. He had dosed before that review and bad things started to happen and he had to get the hell out of there. So he literally, in front of like God and everybody, turns around, about face, and marches off the field and went back to the barracks to like calm himself down.
This guy's a legend. Does he know the effect that he's had on you and I'm sure other people too?
I have not seen that dude. I'm friends. We have some mutual friends like on social media or whatever, but he kind of dropped. I don't know where he is. I haven't seen him since 1988 probably. So Jeff Curtis, if you're out there, man, shalom.
Thank you. Guy. So heartened to hear that. And that's sweet that he was tripping during his military drills. I also love that.
You of course. Balls.
Damn. What a crazy story. Cool. Thanks, Steve. Okay. And Steve is up 1-0 in the series after that Mason's Children pull. One away from the TCO Fly Shop prize pack. Nick's trying to even it up. Let's play the song.
selling roses of paper mache with flecks of starlight dew. I grabbed a bunch and threw it your way, where hazy moonlight flowed. Way down, down along the lazy river road. Way down upon Shadow Fall Wall, end of the avenue. Run, hide, seek in your own backyard. Mama's backyard won't do. All night long I sang love's sweet song down where the water flows. Way down, down along the lazy river road.
Okay, the guesses are in. That was a very pleasant Lazy River Road, and these guys are 1 year off in what they think it was. Steve, you guessed 1993. Why 93?
Well, to me, it sounded like kind of the end of the Dan Healy era in '93, going by the sound of the drums and Garcia's guitar tone again. But it just sounds like '93 to me. No Bruce, so.
Great, thanks. And Nick, you guessed 94.
Yeah, I originally had 93 typed in, but man, Jerry just sounded tired. So I was thinking, there's a little bit of magic left sometimes here and there in 92, and even glimpses of that in 93. But I was just, it was a good version, but hearing Jerry towards the end just makes me sad. And I was thinking more along the lines of 94, 95. It didn't sound as muffled as 95 as Jerry could typically sound then. So I originally had 93 typed in. I was like, man, nah, Jerry just sounds tired. So I went with 94.
Well, your initial gut reaction was correct. It was 93. Steve got it. Nice work, Steve. Great run,
Thanks.
Nick. Steve, I want to go back to what you said about Dan Healy's sound. So how did you identify that within the context of Dan Healy?
Well, Healy, if I have a kvetch complaint about Healy, is I never really liked the way he produced the drums. Were there a few eras with like 87, 88-ish, but Healy was so into his idea of like extreme separation and extreme dynamics, which like stereo and timbre and all that, timbre, whatever. Anyway, when John Cutler took over the sound, I think it was February of '94, maybe. He really kind of scaled that back and turned it into a more traditional. There was some stereo separation, but like the drums sounded much different. They sounded more kind of just like rock band drums, I guess. And it was just a very dramatic shift in sound. And so that's kind of I actually didn't see the Dead at all in '94. I saw a bunch of shows in '93 and I saw them twice in '95, and that was some sad shit. But I thought in '93, like I saw some really fine Grateful Dead concerts, and I also saw some real clunkers too. But when they felt like doing it, when the muse was hitting, man, forget about it. There were some moments in '93 that were really hot and like actual legitimate, I think, Grateful Dead concerts. In that way. But so that's just Healy had a very particular way of doing things, and so when he left and Cutler took over, it was just a very dramatic shift in the way the band sounded.
Brilliant, Steve. Really, really impressive. Thank you for explaining that, and congratulations on being champ of Guest of the Year.
Thanks. This is such an incredible privilege to have these kinds of discussions with people that are like-minded. One of my good friends was a past contestant on this deal, Jack. I mean, like, we have these conversations and people just look at us like, well, we're going to go over here now, and so to have, to like, I know that I'm nuts, but I know that you guys are nuts too, right?
Yeah, we're right there with you, man. You're in
that's
good
what I'm
company.
saying. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's an obsession, but it's pleasing, right? And so it's a genuine delight for this arena. Like, I was joking with my wife and kid earlier. Like, I've been training for this night since 1987.
Love that. Love that. Nick, nice run.
You know what, Mike? I didn't get caught up in the 80s as bad as I thought. I was just another dude, emailing you, and I was like, man, I'm gonna go down in the 80s, but to go down in the 60s and the 90s, I'm way more of a 72 to 78 guy. I eat that shit up all day long, man. I'll listen to that stuff all day long. And I was really focused on listening to like 82, 83 in preparation for this. And yeah, good job, Steve. You know your stuff, man. So I nobly bow down to you, and kudos to you, man.
It's all the same song, man. So yeah, this has been just a thrill. So thanks for everybody, and Nick especially, you guys. Yeah, this was a tough one, So that's it.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. Congrats again. Thank you, everyone. And yeah, we'll see you next week, Steve. Okay, subscribe to Guest of the Year on Apple Podcasts and Spotify for all the show links, including our new YouTube channel. You can go to guestoftheyear.net. And if you want to be a contestant on the show, sponsor the show, or make comments and ask questions, email us at info@guestoftheyear.net. Thank you so much to TCO Fly Shop, especially the founder, Tony, our good pal. Thank you so much, Tony. And thank you to everyone at TCO for providing the prize pack. Again, you could check out the link in the show notes to TCO. Shout out to Dylan for drawing the posters as always. And shout out to Mason for curating the prize packs. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks to the amazing tapers whose recordings made this show possible. Congratulations to our new champ, Steve. And to our other contestants, thanks for playing. And remember, it's all one song anyway.
And I bid you good night. Good night. Good night. And I bid you good night. Good night. Good night.